Coming up in this episode.
Sometimes you get like, okay, how hard can that be? And then you go back, build something yourself, and then the customers are just finding obvious use cases where your software just breaks, and you're just like, how didn't see that?
I quite often tell solo founders to create basically a bit of a journal or a diary, something they worked on their product, whatever it is, jot it down. And I say, do this in one document, because that can act as the foundation for all the things you've just said. It could be a great blog idea. It could be the V1 of their sales playbook. It could be, you know what I mean, like their company handbook, the beginning of that. Like all of it's in there if you just get your thoughts down on paper.
I always love putting pricing up front. I always love using that as a barrier. Like, it's not like you have to pay to get to use it, but get to use it and tell me what I need to do to get you to pay this price for it.
The Founders Unplugged podcast, hosted by McCallum. Raw, unedited conversations with entrepreneurs and startup founders.
It's the setup I have for today. I would have recorded this at home, but we have to get all our floors redone, so it's a mess. And it's not. I know it's just the lack on the top and the top polishing. So it's not changing the floors. It's just right. We just bought a new place, and the people who did the floors did like it's the worst company I've ever worked with.
Oh,
they
really?
just try to shortcut it every time. Yeah. So it's,
what the company doing the floors? You mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
really?
Everybody else we work with, I really wanted to make the move easy and the renovation easy. So we are out in February booking people in, and they got really good recommendations. But I can simply see on that Trustpilot that over the spring and summer that it's getting worse and worse with reviews. So I think something's gone wrong. And I'm up talking with the owner, and he's also just like, his mindset is just like they make a decision on the office on what to do. They don't come out and look at the problems.
Right.
And then they're fixed on that situation.
Not a good way to do business.
No. And so it's a pain, but
at least you're in though, because I remember last time I spoke to you, it was a while ago we spoke about, and yeah, you were preparing for all of that. So how did the move go overall? Was it all right?
The move went really well. Like it was a hard month not having a home with two small kids.
Yeah.
But so I said, like, my days during July was like either like 10 out of 10 or 1 or 2 or 3 out of 10.
Right.
Like either that was like we had the most, and we really tried to make something out of it. Like, should we have rented as like vacation house next to my parents' vacation house? We could rent the house next to that.
Yeah.
So we could borrow my parents' vacation house, and then have friends come and visit us, or family come and visit us, and like, so we have really made something that we have really had some amazing days during the summer, and then there was also all the panicking of like, mostly just the floor people just making things wrong. I think it's the 4th time they have to, like, we're trying to schedule them to come. They have made it wrong 3 times.
No,
like, it's insane. So
are you getting like a refund or anything at least?
But you have to find. So for the first 3 times, we hadn't paid them yet because it was just ugly work. So it was clear to us that there was something wrong. So, but the problem 4th time here is that now we have paid them because we thought it was good, but we can just see that, for example, the floor in the kitchen is not durable enough for normal kitchen work. Like, so if you spill any little drop of water, it would get into the floors, so you get a spot.
Jesus, I mean, even I know how to put a floor in. Like, how can they screw it up if it's their job? Jesus Christ!
It was actually the fascinating thing building WorkJoy, and this was to see it was a management problem.
Yeah,
like there was no, like, everybody else we work with, they came out to us, talked to us, saw the work that needed to be done, like, and made a plan. Then the team came out and did it, and then they came back and did the QA.
Yeah.
And for the floor company, like, getting them out of the office is impossible. And so they don't know what the team, like, I had a week-long discussion whether one of our floors were white or not. Because it should have been white, and it was white, but not the right color. But the project manager was like, no, he wrote here that he didn't use any white lac. He just used plain lac. So of course it's not white. But so like, even that basic level of coordination
Yeah, just come and see it. Like, Jesus
come and
Christ.
see it. And it took a week to get him out to see it. And now we spent like 2 weeks just on this problem, trying to maybe get them out and see it. And they just focused on it. It's incredible.
I feel like there's a good business lesson to be learned in this, for anyone listening. Because, by the way, we've started. But, but yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but it sounds like everything else is going to plan.
We have to, as we also talked to my wife about, besides the flaws, it's really everything else working. It's a really nice place. Slowly getting to be a home. It's just when you don't know if you have to take everything out again and in again and out again. So I feel it's really frustrating that it's this little thing, but else everything else is really good. Kids are good. Businesses is okay. Like we would always like things to go faster and better. But
of course, because you launched around the same sort of time as all this was happening as well, didn't you? Or a little bit before, wasn't it?
Yeah, I closed what I like to do. Closed launches when I start, so you can only sign up for a demo, though I don't really believe in that. And that's so I semi-launched, like let the world knew that I worked on things to get early customers, early users in and really play with the product. And then I found, I think through that early feedback, I really found the epiphany of what WorkJoy should be and how it should work and what it should look like. Especially getting, one thing is to talk to stakeholders, but getting real employees using it and getting their feedback. That's been the best. Like that's where I really know I've hit it with WorkJoy, is that the best feedback comes from regular employees.
Which is what it was intended to be.
Which is what it was intended to be. Like, of course, help leaders and managers by helping employees, but so it's so that's been but it's going.
That's great. And we'll get into the details of that because I'm really curious to hear how that's all gone. But just before we kind of get into it, there is literally like one formality that we need to do. That only one, and then we can carry on just chatting.
Yes.
But
sorry.
and no, that's fine. That's how I like it. It's usually how most of these start, to be honest. Talking about something. I think my last one we started talking about allergies for about 20 minutes before we then realized we had a podcast to do. So it's fine. But the only formality is I think it's just really great to start these things off with my guests to introduce themselves, so who you are and a bit about the business, what is the business and so on. And then I've got a ton of questions I want to ask you about what's been going on the last few months.
Cool.
So over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Hans-Kristian. I'm the founder of WorkJoy, where we help companies. I have my little pitch of making employees just as excited about Mondays as they are about Fridays. Like that's really my my key, like the overall mission for WorkJoy. It's been one of the things I can see in my career, that excitement I've had towards Mondays that really have helped me. So it's something I really want to bring on to a lot of other companies. So my background is that I'm officially now a serial entrepreneur, which is really fun to be able to say. But I have for the past 10 years built a bootstrap company called Klug.io. It's a bootstrap for about 10 years, up from 0 to 150 people. And Klug.io is in the e-commerce personalization space. And then I didn't sell the company, but I hired a professional CEO to run it. And then I'm doubling down on WorkJoy. And WorkJoy is really all the pain I experienced as CEO, growing from 0 to 150 and all the learnings. And not only the pain I had as a leader, but also I could see that my young leaders had and my employees had, and how hard it was to create that alignment across a company, how hard it was to keep that spirit of like the early entrepreneurship as you grew. So that all of that is built in. And I really felt like the problems I had as CEO was, of course, some of that is leadership, but a lot of leadership is like the same. There's not an exact formula to it, but there's sort of like, it's the same things that goes again. Like you can maybe read many leadership books, but when you do that, you realize it's the same points, different words. So there's a way to lead people well. And WorkJoy is really the software that should help support that way. And I think I've not met I couldn't find a piece of software as CEO that kind of dare to double down on great leadership. Especially the philosophy I call calm leadership, which is really what I think I learned to be good at. Like, I think one of my proudest moments was when I had my small kids. Like, they have like Johannes is 5 and Astrid is 3. But when they were born, like in the years where they were really young, I had a business that I think I from Johannes was born and until I stopped as CEO, I quadrupled the business. But I still had 3 months paternity leave. I had 30 hour work days, and we even had COVID and everything else. And I think a lot of that was what I tried to put into calm leadership, about how can you actually find your rhythm of operating when you run a company. And we grew from like 30 to 150 people with me having small kids, and I don't think, like, I think I really had a really great balance. It's one of the things I'm most proud about, like hands down, is not just scaling the company and my wife says the same thing. It's not just the scaling of the company, it's how in balance with family and kids that I managed to do it. And that's some of the things I try to put into WorkJoy as a tool as well. And some of that, of course, is also a philosophy.
Yeah.
So that's what that's where I came from and where I'm headed today.
Yeah, and it's no small feat. And I remember when we first spoke, all those months back, we spoke a lot about the sort of, I guess, frameworks that you've developed, for yourself. And I remember you mentioning, you definitely borrowed from other areas, but essentially you had found your own particular rhythm. I remember you saying that, and that's something that I know you've written a fair bit about. What is it that's kind of, do you feel like you've got a really good understanding of what that is now, or do you feel like some of it is kind of instinctive? And also very specific to the individual, like for yourself at that specific time?
I think we have, I think there's this interesting things with us humans, that we are very different and very alike at the same time.
Yeah, we're a walking contradiction. Yeah.
Yeah. So we feel so different, but if you look at us, most of us are the same people. Like, if you look at the person, like just compares to every other animal, like, of course we are very, very alike. But if you just look at us as humans, we are very, very different. But if you check things like personality tests, you can essentially group people into 5 big traits, like, or some combination of, like, so there are these patterns. And I really thought that was interesting about leadership, is a lot of that is learning these basic buckets. Like, everybody is unique, but we all fit into a bucket. And I live up to a lot of stereotypes about the kind of person I am, and you'll probably do the same. So think about, you need to find your own rhythm. I think the reason why there's so many leadership books is because you need to find your own words to put onto this. But it's the same patterns. It's the same good ideas that work over and over again. It's the same things that don't work over and over again. And that's why sometimes when you hear really good leaders give advice, I can sometimes be frustrated because it sounds so simple.
Yeah.
And it is. But you need to kind of learn to master it and really feel it before it becomes simple. So that's typically the thing about the world. You learn something new, seems simple, you try to do it hard, then you master it, simple again. Like, so I think, I'm very much about, I think a word I like to use is rhythms. That it's not that kind of defines all the things that are recurring in a business. And if you want to do everything long term, like, you're gonna have different periods of time, like business, kids, like, everything is a phase. Nothing is forever. So things will always be changing, but you also have some rhythms you need to put your daily life into to make it work. Like, you have to tuck your kids at bed at some point in the evening, or find your rhythm for this age. So I think it's very much, I'm really a believer in, if you want to be calm as a leader, you need to find your own rhythm. And the rhythms I have found are usually the same. If there's a pattern I think work great across all companies, all leaders, is that like, rhythms have different lengths. Like, so you can say you have your daily rhythm. That's a lot about the individual productivity. Like, if you as a leader can look at your team's individual daily rhythms and optimize those for their productivity, you will just get more out of them. And that's where many leaders actually sometimes get in the way of that team on a day-to-day basis. But I think if you just look at daily rhythms, personal productivity. I like to say weekly rhythms that can be like 1 week or maximum 2 weeks at a time is more about team alignment. Like if you put team alignment, just your team, just the micro alignment in a weekly rhythm, then you have kind of that checked off. Like again, company alignment once a month, and then I like to do what I call change management. And I hate that word, but it's such a broad bucket for everything you want to change. Like you can do that on a bi-monthly schedule, or you can do that on a quarterly schedule. Of some companies might like to do it on a yearly schedule, but like, so you have these rhythms, and if you just define those rhythms as a leader, things become a lot easier, both for you and for your team. Because what the rhythm do is that they make the unpredictable predictable. So we don't know what we're going to do next month, but we have a predictable rhythm to kind of fix it, and just creates this calmness for everything.
And I suppose, like, if we follow that analogy on a bit more of rhythm, which I like, by the way, because if it, you know, for me, it resonates with me as someone who's kind of visual, and the way that I think of an organization, I think of it very much as like this web, you know, almost of different threads that are really important. And I can sort of, so you know, imagining that in there, I can just sort of see it. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it makes sense in my mind.
You can compare to music. Like I play drums.
Right, yeah, like an orchestra almost. Like, is everyone on tempo, and is everyone doing their?
Also, you have your hi-hat. Like that's your daily routine. That's the smallest rhythm you can have. Or like you have like, okay, so you might have the individual notes. That's your individual days. Like, okay, then you have a beat that might be no, I'm not used to speak about music in English, so I know one or two what is it called, phrases, or like you might have rhythm that's a couple of blocks long, and then it repeats, and then you have your song that have like a verse and a chorus, but those repeats again. You have these, like, that's the reason why we like the chorus when it comes back, is because we know it, we recognize it. So we're built for rhythms, and I really think about a lot about like music, and I think many companies and many leaders, like, as you can say, you can only see the forest you can't see the forest for the trees. If you just, in many companies, you just get introduced to the individual notes of the bass guitar, like 2 notes from the bass guitar, 4 notes from the drums, like 1 from the keyboard. You can't see the picture, like so the rhythms really help you create and to see, this is a verse, this is a chorus. Like we all do the same things here, even though it's a different concert, a different place.
I like it as an analogy, because of it's easy to wrap your head around. And you're right, like so often, you know, you can't hear the full song because you're too focused on specific segments of the musicianship. But like, so how does this all factor into WorkJoy? Because I know you kind of explained it at the beginning, but like for people, I know what WorkJoy is because we've spoken before and you've shown it to me. But for those listening or watching, how does this all factor into WorkJoy? Like, what is WorkJoy specifically?
So if you just take one step back and say, what is WorkJoy? Well, WorkJoy is the software I wish I had as a CEO when I grew from 100 to 150 people. Because I think there's a lot of tools you need to run a great people organization, but the people tech space is just super fragmented. So I sat down and said, okay, if I want to do the best training, I want to do the best feedback, I want to do the best alignment, if I want to do the best knowledge sharing, like all the things you need to run a bigger organization, I needed, like, I thought I counted 8 tools. That's not going to work. Like you have a diminishing return every time you introduce a new tool, because people have to get to learn that and go over there and then remember to go over there. So I normally have a rule, you can have like 3 tools. So basically was my frustration that I thought that there was 2 problems. One, I had this super fragmented people tech space with all these different tools. And then I thought, because all the tools were kind of, then you had a learning management system that was only a learning management system. Then it had to be really broad to attract a big market. Or you had a project management system that was only a project management system. Then it had to be really flexible to attract a big market. So none of them dare to double down on great collaboration, like on great leadership. So I think WorkJoy is really 2 things. It's taking all of the essential tools you need in your people tech stack, and everybody has these or should have these. Like some companies just choose not to because of the diminishing return. But all the tools you need to build a great people tech stack, and then each of the tools are built into one platform where they really natively work together, and it's one coherent experience. And then for every single thing we build, we really like take, okay, what is the best practice in the industry, and combine it. What is the best practice in what you call the social science of leadership? Like, so we always combine that. So, for example, one thing we're really good at, for example, with our project management system, is working across teams. And that's because we've built a flow where if I, as a leader, delegate a task to somebody else, that delegation path is super clear. It's not complicated. It's not heavy like a lot of these systems. It's super lightweight, but it's clear to everybody who delegated to who. And I have one view in WorkJoy where I can see across the whole organization, not only my own tasks, but all the tasks I've delegated to other people. And when they have completed a task, and I think this is a thing where, it's just my little example of where WorkJoy dares to shine. When you have completed a task somebody else delegated to you, it goes back. Like in most system treats a task when it's done as it's done. Like, so if you delegate a task to me and I said it was done, the task management system will say it's done. But that's not reality. That actually creates a lot of conflict, because I might think it's done, but if you gave him the task, that doesn't mean you think it's done.
Right.
Like, so in WorkJoy, we've built in this little flow of if you've delegated a task, it always runs into a little tab where we just confirm it. And that means it gives you, it solved this problem that if you delegated a task to me, I think it's done, I go on with something else, and then you come back to me and say, oh, no, it's not done. Then I get feedback in an unpredictable manner. Like I'm interrupted in somebody else to get negative news about something I think was done. Or I launch something out into the world. So we build this feedback loop into everything. So it's super transparent for everybody. And you can just easily request me to improve the thing I've done. And then we'll just go back into my workflow, or you can confirm that it's done. And not only have we built that little flow in, we've actually also built directly integrated our feedback module, like for giving 360-degree feedback for your colleagues, directly into the task manager, such that, because that's a big problem in the feedback space, is that when you give feedback, like we know good feedback should be concrete and on the work and not on the person. But because the feedback mechanisms we have are one-on-ones, or these like quarterly reviews or whatever people, or yearly reviews or whatever people do, then like it quickly becomes on the person. So I would maybe give you the feedback that you are a bad communicator, and that's super hurtful. But when we work on a concrete task, I can give you the feedback, say, hey, on this task, if you had just explained this thing like the first time, I would have gotten it the first time. It would have been super helpful to me. Like, that's how WorkJoy works. So we dare to be opinionated about good leadership. And when I say opinionated, like literally do what's in the textbooks, because there's some commonality to this, and then bring all these tools together. And what you get out of that is a bit of a tool set for what everybody else tries to build with this set of diverse tools that employees then have to jump between. So sometimes I also say, like, you could see it a bit like we use a lot of the same processes HubSpot is doing. Like, back in the days, you would have a lot of different tools for your customer journey, but nobody would dream of doing that today. You would, of course, you have one CRM for the whole customer journey, and of course, you want one software for the whole employee journey. So right now, we've built all these alignment and productivity tools and learning, because we thought that was where we could make the difference impact. But we're also building an HRIS, like basic employee documents and sick leave and all these kind of boring things, so employees don't have to go to another system for that. Like, we're building a recruiting system that also have like personality tests and more scientific based in recruiting built into it. Like, so we have all these things building into the platform,
like a company operating system, essentially, right? And it's like inevitable that this sort of thing would happen. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this over the years, and I think we spoke about this before, where it seems inevitable that you'd have to go to this point, because, like you said, the more and more that's thrown at businesses in their tech stack to use, like, oh, this is useful and this is useful. And I'm guilty of it too, because I've you know, as you know, I'm a founder of a B2B tech startup as well, right? Specifically in the area of feedback, right, which we've talked about. And you know, it's overwhelming. And I've become really cognizant of this over the years, working in the B2B space especially, that businesses are getting more and more tired of being sold yet another platform that they have to not only pay for, which is adding a huge amount of strain, but like you said, teach their staff how to use, ensure that they're using it, right? And often all these platforms have a slightly different logic to them, a slightly different UI, a slightly different, you know, it's a lot. Like, employees are spending more time on software than they are actually doing their job. So
the context switch is extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And I was guilty of it as CEO, that sometimes I forgot to go into the like HR system and approve something or blah, blah, like all these things, because it has yet another tool.
It's like,
so,
what's my password? I can't get in.
Also just the different UI and how was this working again? And you can see it with LMS as a reason why, like, I think LMS, like a learning management system, is key when you hire somebody. Of course, you should go through a training program where you have either written down or recorded video how you do great work. You cannot expect people to do great work if you don't set the tone of what that great work is. And then LMS is just a super sufficient way of not only communicating that, but also making sure that people have understood that. Like, and it should not stand on its own. You can always do personal training to follow up on that, but to build a baseline. Like, and most companies don't buy it because it's yet another tool. Like, and it's hard to get adoption because you have to go over there, where we've just built it in the early beta in WorkJoy, like in our development environment. And I've just tried it out. Like, now you're just in your sidebar, you just as for your inbox, you have a little number if there are like courses that you haven't completed yet. And it's just wires your brain to automatically just go in there and get it done. And
keeping it simple.
Keeping it simple. So I think, and this is just how software goes. Like, what was a standalone company 10 years ago is a feature today. So there's nothing wild about what we are doing. It's just come to the people tech space. And I can see a lot of our competitors are maneuvering that way. Their problem is just that they always do it from an angle, like either from some of the softer values or from the HR space, or from, like, so always do it from angle. That means they get boxed in by that initial angle. Where what I decided to do in WorkJoy, contrary to common startup advice, so that's my bet, is, you know, we build a platform that's built to be this platform. We don't just start nailing one thing and then do all the others, because we're gonna get like bogged down in that corner, and everything else we're going to do is going to be flavored by that. So the flavor should be from the beginning that we are this multi-product platform.
And you're kind of, and the trajectory of a company is dictated by its customers oftentimes, right? So doing that other way of doing it, that, like you said, the one that is most commonly given as startup advice, niching down, focusing on one area, means that, you know, you would then find more and more clients in that area. And every feature request, every direction you get is to service that one area, and so your resources are pulled to that. And you know, the worry then is for companies to say, well, we want to expand. Well, okay, we might piss off our current client base, and you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right?
Yeah, we are time boxing right now. There's time box. There's a certain amount of time we use on feedback, because I think that's the best way to work. Like, especially doing my second company, really doubling down and building something people love, because you understand what it takes now. Like, like, so that's one thing. I really love that, just working on customer feedback, understanding, not only just building the thing they're asking, but really understanding what is the problem you experience and how can we build something that's maybe even better. But then we're also time boxing and say, no, we are on a mission. We cannot be bogged down on this. So we're building these things. We're still, like, again, like, we have lots of feature requests for one of the first things we launched were the kind of this project management part of the product, which was really essentially just to begin with working cross teams. Like, how do we work cross teams efficiently? The task process of work described just before works really excellent across teams. Like, just to give an example, most companies don't, if the customer reports a bug, most customers never get back to the customer when the bug is fixed because they can't figure out where it was from. Or so if a customer service representative in WorkJoy just tags up a bug for one of the developers, like, then because you have this feedback loop, the developer can either just use WorkJoy to fix it, or they can go over into different systems. But in the end, the developer has to tag the task completed for the customer support representative, and that means they get it back into their confirm. So even though they never monitor it, they just get notified when the developer is done. So that kind of thing. So the point is, even though we double down on that in the beginning, and we get a lot of feature requests for that, we're still we need to move forward on the LMS. We need to move forward on the HRIS system and stuff like that. So we kind of become this full platform.
I think this is the key difference between, a company founded by someone who's got an idea and a company founded by someone who's something of a visionary. And I don't mean to sort of like blow smoke up your ass or anything, but like you clearly had a very strong, big vision, right? And so, the way that you're going to be pushing this forward is going to be very different from a maybe someone like me who's or some other founders out there who just got an idea of fixing a very particular set of somewhat small problems that they've noticed in a very specific area. You're looking to fix a system, right, which is a lot bigger and requires a lot more foresight. So when you get that feedback, you're putting it through the filter of, okay, does this align with the overall vision, and are we making that overall vision clear to our users? And that I imagine presents a whole different set of challenges that ordinary founders, maybe like myself, wouldn't go through, right? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and I think I just had a meeting earlier with one of our early users where yeah, it was interesting. Every time they had a feature request, I was like, yeah, we have that. Like, I have thought about that.
Right.
Because you have thought about where you want to go, but you kind of build it just in time.
Yeah.
So you have thought about a lot of how these things should work and how
you're like one step ahead of them, basically.
Yeah, you try to, because you have the vision of where we need to go, and then you're just like, okay, it's going to take a long time to go there, and we have a rough idea of how everything should work. So when customers ask for it, we always have something ready.
Yeah.
Not product ready, but idea ready. And okay, we thought about doing it this way. Would that work with your setup? So yeah, as a whole. But I also spent a year on besides, I spent a whole year before building what is now the product. I spent a whole year building 2 prototypes and a lot of research with CEOs, founders, C-level leaders, mid-management leaders, coaches, but also just regular employees. I think that's the best user research we have done. It's actually just taking a lot of small interviews, cups of coffee with regular employees and regular companies, and understanding their problems. And I think it's really what is often overlooked is leaders, if the employees are as a leader, your job is to create results through others. So the more they get done, the better they work, the more you get done. But I think many leaders mistakenly gets in the way there. So I think some of the best feedback we've gotten for WorkJoy is basically going down there. Yeah, so it's big, and sometimes I wish I would have just done a little thing. It's the grass is always greener on the other side. But this is really a problem I believe should be solved, and I believe it's the right time, because we just are a place where the software, all of the things we're putting together are established. There's not going to be radically new inventions. All the large language models, AIs, might tweak some of it and provide interesting things and to do some things, but we're not reinventing the wheel anywhere. There are good leadership books out there. There's good leadership tools. They have not changed for a long time. And so nobody's really there to double down on combining them and then double down on this building great leadership into the UI of the product and into the workflows of the product, and really saying, this is how it is. We're not going to be this tool that's extremely flexible. Not that you can do what you can do, and all the flexible tools, people build the same things anyway. Like I've sitting with and looked at what people have built. I'm just like, yeah, you have just built like a basic project management system, but in a spreadsheet or in Notion or in or you have built for the LMSs where we've looked at what people have done is like you've built like all the LMSs are more or less the same, and everybody who builds their own has built more or less the same. So even the flexible tools, like people still just do the same thing. So
do you use WorkJoy in Clerk as well?
Yeah. And in WorkJoy ourselves, of course, even though we're a small company and it's built, like you can say the problem, as I normally say, is like it's the pain points it really solves are from 30 people and up. Like they are there below 30 people. It's just you're so small that it can be easily solved.
Yeah.
But our main market is 30 people and up. Like when you start to really structure your recruitment and onboarding and how people work, and like we really have to create this good company infrastructure such that it doesn't just become one big entangled mess. But we use it as again for small company, and I can see it. People who are interested in it are either people that come to that point or founders that are starting again. Like they might be 5 people, but they know the pain and they just want to
get ahead of it.
They can want to get ahead of it.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that some of the best feedback you've had is from sort of frontline employees. So what are they saying? Like, are they finding it useful? And if they are, what in what ways?
My favorite quote is from a frontline employee from a company that tested it, where that was. He said something on the line of, "I wish we had WorkJoy when I started here, because for the first 2 months I had 22 tabs I never dared to close because I would never find whatever was in that tab again." And that was like knowledge base articles, systems for this thing, systems for that thing, especially see companies right now using Notion for a lot of things, but what people forget is when they build Notion, it's a no-code platform. So if you don't document it, when you come in as a new guy having to learn all of these things, like it's So again, like I think that quote, I had 22 tabs I didn't dare to close for 2 months because I was afraid I would never find it again. Like I think that really shines a light. And this is a company that is good rated by employees, that has its shit down and has its setup, but it has a lot of tools, and a lot of systems. And even in those tools, as I mentioned, like when you have Notion, it's not one tool, it's a collection of different tools people have built, or you might have 8 different project management tools in Notion, and they all work slightly different. And so I think that quote really resonated with me. And we've just launched some different UI changes to the menu, where before the menu was more structured based on our features, like from our point of view. And now we've completely revamped it into from the employee's point of view. When you're context switching at work, what is top of mind? So in the menu, you cannot clearly see like our features anymore, but it's more blended into one. For example, the LMS and the knowledge base is just under a menu item called knowledge, because in this employee, you don't care if it's a course or if it's a handbook.
Right.
Like you're just context switching. I need to know how to solve this problem.
And if anything, that adds a layer of confusion. It's like, okay, I know that there was that thing, but I can't remember if it was in a course or if it was in a, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't matter.
Here or there.
You're adding a layer of complexity to the whole thing. Yeah.
And you have this unified search built into everything, so you can always search from anywhere. Like, so and you have all these things where it's just about really, I come from a background of e-commerce UX, and I think it can really helps me here, because in e-commerce UX is money. And you can measure it. Like what really got me interested into programming, even before Clerk.io, was really that, okay, we made the buy now button. Like we changed it from just saying buy to buy now. It was a bit greener, a bit bigger, and had a bit more margin. Like in the code, it's literally the same code, but we created instantly 3% growth for the company. Which would normally have taken us a month or 2 months to get to.
Right. That's the kind of stuff that absolutely fascinates me about software too, is the psychology behind software, and how, very simple design choices can can just suddenly open up a realm of possibilities by just making things resonate with how people work, because people are weird. Like one of the really interesting things about launching any new SaaS product, and I've worked with hundreds at this point, is the first step, right? Getting it into the hands of people, because like you said, feedback is really integral. And what's interesting at that stage is just seeing what people do with it, and they do insanely unexpected things. And I've worked with, I remember one founder, I won't name his name, but I remember working with one founder before who didn't get what you're meant to do in that situation, which is you're meant to change your product to fit what people are doing, instead of trying to educate them. No, this is how our product works. And it's like, no, mate, you don't understand. The point of software is to service people. And I think that along the way that there's still a bit of that. Like, there's still some resistance. It's like, no, but this is our baby. This is what we created. And there's a bit of resistance to just be like, what do you need it to do? If you're going to keep clicking there, let's move it there. You know what I mean?
But it's so difficult, I think, because it's a balance of listening to people, understanding, and as you say, get that thing done, but also still taking your stand on, no, this is how I believe the world should be.
Right.
That's so hard, and that's really so you cannot just say we just do everything customers ask. That's going to be shitty. Like, you cannot just go in and say this is how I believe the world should be. That's going to be shitty. The art is really that balance of being really good at listening to people and solving their problems, but solving them in a way that's consistent with how you believe the world to be. And then
so I always remember, this is a bit of a random story, but I remember when I was a teenager, one of my first jobs was working in a restaurant. Well, it's an Italian restaurant. And this resulted in my first ever consultancy work, right? But at the time, and this is this sounds really simple and stupid, but I'll mention it anyway. There was a kitchen that was like an open kitchen, and it had the front, so everyone could see in the kitchen. Italian restaurant, theatre, all that sort of stuff. And what there used to be stations all around the restaurant where there was the tills, and there would be the big pepper thing and the parmesan, right? And it was on all the tills. And inevitably, what would happen was the manager would start getting pissed off because everyone kept leaving the big pepper meals and the parmesan graters at the front of the counter for the kitchen. They would leave it on the front because they would do it, and then they would have to run and get more food and give it to the table, right? And so they would just be all these pepper meals everywhere, and they would be left there. And so the manager kept saying, guys, put them back, go back to your thing. And they would explain every time, but we have to go back to our station and then go back to the thing. It doesn't make sense. So I just said, I've got an idea. Just move the fucking stations on either side of the kitchen window, right? That was it. Simple, right? And suddenly things started being more efficient. And I think there's this and the reason why I think to this is because it's a similar sort of thing to my mind of like, it was a compromise, right? It's not right in the middle, it's right on the sides, it's still not in the way, it's still not, it's not untidy, so it's not going to offend the manager, but it's more efficient for the servers. And I think that's in a very roundabout way, that's the kind of thing that I think about when I think about software. It's like, as to how to find a compromise. It's like, well, if people are going to continually do this and this is helpful, then we need to do something similar to that. But it is also important that this is a clear station and people can get to it and it doesn't look messy for the customers. Bit of a random story, but that's what I always think about when I think about these things, and how to find the balance. You know what I mean, between those two things you talked about.
Yeah, but that is the art and the science of it, is really figuring out how do you help people and how do you help them with not the other things they haven't seen. So that's the hard thing, and that's really
parmesan and pepper. Whenever you're thinking about it, just think of parmesan and pepper.
But it's also like, now that I'm back in the weeds, like starting over again, like now for 10 years been working on the same product, the same thing. It's really interesting getting back on the front line, like showing something for the first time to people. And it's sometimes like, you think it's also been a really humbling experience, because like when you've been CEO for 150 people, I wouldn't say you feel like a big shot, because you always feel like you're failing in some way. But sometimes you get like, how hard can that be? And then you go back, build something yourself, and then that customers is just finding obvious use cases where your software just breaks, and you're just like, how I didn't see that.
If you are enjoying this episode, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Yeah, I thought I was better than that. How did I miss that? yeah.
I just had it with the editor where if you copy paste it from Google Docs, only Google Docs, but like it could get super weird and break. Like, so, and that was just because the content when you copy paste from Google Docs is more messy than the systems we have tested copy pasting from. That was more structured. Like, so we hadn't got all that mess into so yeah, I really love that. But that's why I'm really a firm believer of. I can just remember like one of the first users on WorkJoy was like, hey, I'm creating like action items for this meeting. But the way he created it was not go on the meeting clicking on the add action item button. No, he's just creating a task, which is really what the action item is. In like free, and like just as a free floating task, which is fine. You could do that. It was like, how do I add it to the meeting? Like he wanted to create the task, then go and like change it back and set it to say, this task should be under that meeting. So all these workflows that you really need to figure out how to do those things nice. I think that's really interesting about software.
Yeah, definitely.
Being here in the early days.
Because sorry, I was just going to say, I'm having the same issue with you mentioned Notion. So I'm setting up Notion at the moment, and I haven't really properly used Notion anywhere before. I've always used it to a small amount, and I'm setting it up for myself and for some of my clients and yeah, a few other things because I'm working on. And I'm overwhelmed with options. Yeah, that's the problem I have with it. I'm overwhelmed with options. It's a great tool. I can see its value, but I'm overwhelmed with options. How do you avoid that same sort of thing with a tool like WorkJoy, where you're offering a huge amount of functionality? Like you mentioned, I know there's some sort of tricks there, like you just talked about, just calling something knowledge as opposed to LMS, etc. But like that it's still a quite a big concern potentially, right?
That's why I always say WorkJoy is opinionated, because what Notion is not is opinionated. Right. Like, and I love Notion.
It's
Notion
agnostic.
Yeah. It's really great for what it is, which is a no-code platform. Like, it's a spreadsheet mixed with text, and you can do a little bit of data, and you can do a little, like, it's really fun. Like, we use Notion to organize our moving, and like me and my wife, we use Notion to organize our wedding. But what I see now that I come into more and more companies and see how they work, what I see is that the problem is, as soon as you get big, you are building software, you're building systems, which means when you build it, you have to maintain it and document it. Like, and people really underestimate this documentation things. So when I come in, I can just see people build a system, abandon it. Like, build a system, abandon it. And every time they build it, they are super excited because I'm creating the process, and this is gonna be great. And then they, as we just talked about, they present it to real users, mainly the employees, and then they're fucking it all up because they're not filling out all the fields the manager had thought about should be filled out, because who the fuck does that every day? Like, so that's really the value of WorkJoy, is that if I want to be frank, like, an experienced leader and software developer has sat down and made the right choices. Like, so that's why I say it's opinionated, is that you could, there's some things because of privacy you could do in WorkJoy that you couldn't do in Notion, but many things you could just recreate in Notion. The point is just that we have filtered out all the mistakes by like tons of user testing, tons of reading leadership books, tons of my personal experience, tons of experience going even back to the UI and stuff like that. So when you double down on good leadership, you get it into the UX and you get these results, and it's not small things like context switching. Like, if context switching is complicated, an employee is going to take a break. You're going to get, I can't, this is too much. I'm just going to go on Facebook, or I'm going to go for a cup of coffee, and then I talk to some colleagues, and that feels like work, so it's fine. So context switching in a company is super expensive, because if it's complicated, or I have to go and find and ask somebody to know where this thing is. Like, so when you have all of these systems and software, people are like, because context switching looks like work, people think it's just how it is, but it's just super expensive. And that's where the experience of going back all the way back to e-commerce UX, leading a company, like all of that, combined with just, like there are so many great tools out there. So there's a lot of great inspiration for what we pull in. Like we just pull the best of the best and put into a platform. And then we say, and we label it. So if you want the most flexible project management software to build your process, WorkJoy is not for you. But if you want software that's true and tested through like what the best practices within leadership, and that's why I say leadership is, I wouldn't say formula because that's very precise, but there are some really clear patterns. Like then WorkJoy is really great, and that's why WorkJoy is so far so highly praised by ordinary employees, because they are the ones that have to live with whatever system their manager has built in Notion or anywhere else, and haven't documented or learned or something like that. So when they get into a system where it's built purposefully and makes sense and is like well organized and stuff like that. Like, so that's really what I try to draw a lot of the experience in the WorkJoy user experience. I really try to draw a lot of my e-commerce user experience, where in e-commerce you don't have time to educate people.
Yeah.
You lose them. If you have 5 to 7 seconds before they go somewhere else. Like, so drawing on that experience, I take the same mindset into WorkJoy. And I have 5 to 7 seconds before people take a coffee break or go on Facebook, like, or TikTok,
or
or
before they've made up their mind that the tool is useless, right? Because the judgment
more about, but I'm not talking about evaluating my tool. I'm talking about when people use these tools every day.
Yeah, but my point is that in the workplace, obviously people are they have to engage with the tool, right? Whereas in commerce, people can choose to just move on and find something else. But the point is, in the workplace, what I found at least is that people are very quick in a few seconds to decide whether or not they like the tool or not, and then that seems to affect their productivity with it. So if in the beginning they're just like, oh, I hate the tool, this is too complicated, then you'll find they will always struggle with it, because if they've automatically decided that they're against it. Whereas those that are like, oh, I love this tool, this is great, then they seem to have a completely different relationship with that tool moving forward,
And leaders have this humans, but I would say human leaders have this mistake of every time something's go wrong, we make a new rule.
Yeah.
This is with government. Like
we add layers of complexity on top.
I judge that. Like I've made a joke once, but I mean it a bit seriously. That like, and I'm nowhere in the government. I'm really glad we live in Denmark and I love the Danish welfare state. But I was like, can you be accountable for the rules the government makes when they make so many rules that it's literally not possible to read all the pages? If you just sit down and read as they get voted on, like it's literally not possible for me as a citizen to just follow along with all the text that is come into the laws. So like, can we be accountable to that? Like, so humans have a tendency, every time something goes wrong, we make a rule. Every time something doesn't work in a system, we add a new field. Like, so over time, everything we build just becomes so bloated, people don't want to use it. And that's, again, one of the experience to bring into WorkJoy and say, yeah, we can have all this functionality, but how can we, if you fill out the minimum amount of needed information, it still works great, and then everything is just an add-on from there. Like, how does it naturally just layer upon, so that you don't have, for example, have a lot of empty fields in a menu that just distracts you, but they only show up if you have populated them. The small choices, and I mean it really seriously, that the human, what you say, our attention is like so valuable to a company that every time we can make something simpler, it makes people more productive, and it makes it easier to get things done. So yeah, but again, I think that's where we are at WorkJoy right now. We are those finalizing stages from, as I said before. Right now we are at invite only, like you have to go through me to get access to the platform and have a demo, and that's because we're still there where I really want to make sure that I know everybody and we're talking with everybody, so people are using it, but it's very handhold, and I have meetings with I have regular meetings with almost all the companies, and I still have like follow-ups with everybody that's using it based on what if you want. But we're really close to getting to a point where with the software where it's so polished that I'm like, now we opened up. I hope to do this October for self sign up, because that's where I believe software should be experienced. But that's the last layer of polish.
And are you allowing people to join work or to use WorkJoy from anywhere in the world, or are you focusing purely on Denmark?
No, for everywhere in the world.
Everywhere. Okay.
WorkJoy is purposefully built to be global from the beginning. Yeah. Remote first, all these kind of things. I simply don't believe in building a company today that works on the internet that has any kind of attachment to any place in the world. Mm-hmm. That I can also see the people that like the little group of people we are so far is like super different backgrounds and countries and places, and I believe that should be baked in. I would not dare to build a company that's not organized this way from the.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just because I can see in Clerk how hard it is. Like, we have an office in Copenhagen, then you have an office culture, and every time we talk about expanding into other countries, and we have expanded into a lot of other countries, but from Copenhagen, because that having multiple offices, what do you do about the culture that doesn't? That lives in the office, that part of that, which is also one of the goals we have with WorkJoy, is actually make us remote. I wouldn't say remote first, because that's not necessarily the word we would use, but like digital first. So you don't have to be in the office. Like make it easier for us to also expand internationally.
Like a distributed,
be more flexible in that way.
Yeah, a flexible workforce. Yeah. So is the software cloud based, or is it like Slack? You have to download the software into
right now it's only web. So it's only web, only desktop. Mobile is also something we're coming up with, because of course you need that. But while we're still hand holding, it's only web.
Yeah. That's really interesting, and so I know a lot of people, and myself included, like, are in a position, or I'm going to be in a position very similar to you with my company in launching an open beta soon, right? And the biggest question I always get asked is, how do you get people to sign up to it, right? So what kind of stuff were you doing activity-wise to get these companies on board, to get them to, like you said, go through you to create an account and get them signed up?
I mean, cold outreach.
All right.
Not necessarily cold, but I think you can do a lot of. I think in the beginning, you have to be so targeted because you're still exploring things. And I think, but I think it's kind of easy. People also think it's super scary, but I'm like, some years into Clerk, I really learned how to sell in a good way where you are not feeling cringy. Like, I think, and my pattern, I really want to recommend this to any other founder or any other person that sits out there, because I think it's super powerful, and that's where most people fail, is that the first step you need to do before reaching out to somebody is convincing yourself why you can help them. Like, how can you help them? Like, and I did this with, for example, with Clerk, where it was super easy to see, I can look on your website and see if our software can help you do better upsales here, or I can find these things in your, it could be something as simple as just searching for a main category in the search engine. And if it's said there are no products with this category, like, I knew we could do it better. Or if they didn't do upsales or didn't do it well enough, but in the beginning it was really just like not doing upsales or cross sales at all. Like, so I just like made this pattern, this playbook of like, I have 5 things I check for. If 2 or more are relevant, I reach out. And that's like, because I know, and that also makes my reach out is not this bloated cold email to people. It's just like, hi, I was looking at your website and I saw that you didn't do these things that make really, really sense. Like, we do this. I would love to show you how. Like, do you have a thing to that? Like, so you're relevant and helpful from the beginning. And if people say no, it's fine. If you're sold to yourself, of course, people can choose to not solve this problem right now. Fine. But that kind of reach out where it's like super you always come up with an ask. Like there are different ways of doing it. Like we've done great with this company. Like I think we could like from our perspective, they are the sort of like they're in the same industry as you. But you see like we can do this, like something like that, where you do like a bridge of we've done X, can we help you with Y? And I do the same thing with WorkJoy. It's just like, of course, I have some network, but in the beginning, it was also super important for me to get true answers, and you maybe don't get that from your network. Like so, Clerk, my own company, was not involved in the early testing of WorkJoy because I'm still the founder. Like, I don't truly trust the people who will tell me.
You might not get very honest feedback.
Even though people have really, and I'm really glad for this, have been really, really good at being honest with me. So when they found something that didn't work, but for me, I've done the same with WorkJoy. Like, hey, I've built this. Like, I experienced this pain. So it could be for me in WorkJoy, it's reaching out to founders or people in C-level or people like head of HR, head of people and culture, like in that kind of role. Just like, hey, when I was at your size, I experienced this problem. I have solved the WorkJoy. If that's something that's relevant to you, I'd like to show you how we do that. Like, and for most people, it's like worst case. It's just like you're super respectful. You have done your research. You have super high conversion rates on that. Like I don't do many reach out. I think it's like 50% to a demo. Like, some don't convert right away. Then they convert a few months later and come back and like, but that just little sowing the seed instead of just going blah blah blah. WorkJoy is this thing. I have looked at where you are. I think you experience this problem. I also have experienced. Like, can I show you how we solve it? Worst case, like for people, it's okay. Then they get some inspiration. Like best case, they actually get a product that solves the problem, and they might not have the problem, but then it's not a problem because you just try to be helpful. Like, So I think that way of getting early people in and just doing sales in general, I always like that. Like, so for me, it's just on LinkedIn, like because it's relevant to WorkJoy. Like, I think in for example, in Clerk, I wouldn't use LinkedIn because many of the relevant retailers are not that active on LinkedIn. They're basically running their own business. Like, because we started out with the SMB e-commerce space, so that would be Googling their websites, finding websites within a certain category, and just using Google. And then I even used Loom pretty early or similar tools to just record a video of the website, like showing that you have actually done the research. And I cannot stress this enough for anybody interested in sales or founders learning out there, showing that you have just put in like some effort when you reach out. Just people's perception of you is just different from all the 99% of people that just throw something at them. And it doesn't have, like, again, if you use rhythms, you just use the same thing again in Clerk. I had 5 things I looked for. When I have found 2, I just start. I didn't, like, if I could, usually look for all 5 because I could look for all 5 in less than 20 seconds. But you know, like, if you can record a video and show where it is, like, or just write in a few sentences, I'll be super respectful and always like have that clear instinct for helping. Like, so I think that's a really good way to get early customers. And in WorkJoy, it's a lot harder, like, because it's top down, it's not bottom up. Right. It solves the whole collaboration of a company. So there are few people that are willing to, hey, let me just roll this out across my 250 people organization. Like,
right, and that's what I was going to ask, because if you're, you know, the biggest difficulty with any B2B sale is when you're trying to sell something that people already have, right? And in this instance, and because people want to think that what they've got works the majority of the time, or if they know it doesn't work, they're terrified of ripping it all up and starting again. So I mean, what you're essentially doing is you're proposing you're going to replace, you know, their entire to some degree their entire infrastructure, and that's quite difficult to do, especially if it's, I mean, I assume that are you mentioning, like, you know, this is early access and all that sort of thing? I mean, that's going to full transparency.
Super clear on I want their feedback. I want to solve that problem. And I want to involve them early while it's still moldable. Like, that's also what I'm targeting.
Because that's an even extra layer of potential hesitation for people. It's like, okay, we can rip everything up that we're doing, implement this new thing, and it might not even work because it's a new company, right? So there's a lot of trepidation. You have to, I mean, I suppose in a lot of way, it's really probably your background and your profile that adds a lot of validity to you reaching out to them in some ways, maybe, right?
For some way, yeah, in some way, of course it is. But I also think it's the approach that asking for help. I'm not starting by asking them to throw all of their employees into this. That would be insane. I'm starting by having them as a domain expert look at the software. Like that's step one. Like, can you spend 30 minutes giving me feedback on this? Like helping me? Like it might help you in the future. It might help you right now. But my first ask is usually for feedback. You know, like then the next task is like, if it's interesting, then we can go in and say, then let's loop in a little team and play around with it. Create a little inside group that's really confident with it, and then you expand the circles from there. But again, I think that's one of the things I'm most interested in going into hopefully the big public launch here in October is how easy it's going to be to transfer people. But I can see now that as moving things are not like, it's a few hours work of time.
But still, that approach might be useful still for larger organizations, where actually to just say, look, you know, when you integrate our platform, do it one team at a time, maybe, like, you know, to avoid a kind of a cascade, maybe.
But it's a fundamental. It's my biggest concern about the business is that it's top down, and I might prefer bottom up. Like Clerk was more bottom up. Like it doesn't have to be. Sometimes this is CEO and board making the decisions because it might be like expensive. It's also a bigger platform and blah blah blah. But you could start with just a corner. Use that. It could be one person decision. Like so I think that's my biggest, what I'm most intrigued about solving with WorkJoy is that it's kind of all or nothing. But then again, like it's the same challenge Salesforce has. It's the same challenge HubSpot has. Like sales CRMs are all or nothing. You know, like
there's an emotional
a lot
element.
of this system.
There is an emotional element to this, though, as well, right? Which is that what I've found doing change management and consultancy work, especially, is when you're going into a larger organization and you're making suggestions to change systems or processes, that there is someone usually behind a system or a process that's embedded in the company that someone has an emotional attachment to because they were responsible for implementing it. And so that's potentially another challenge there for you, which is that, you know, yes, there's the sort of logistical challenges of it, but actually people might get in the way of it because of they're invested emotionally in having implemented something, and they're quite passionate. They might have spent a lot of time and resources in doing it. They might even be the sort of the evangelist for it in their company, you know, like you get that. So to say, oh well, we're going to remove that could be potentially, you know, hurt their ego. No.
But you see a lot of, and again, what I experienced with the product management side was that a lot of the leaders loved the systems they have built. Yeah, like they might be frustrated that people never followed them,
but they're married to
the system. So it's sometimes, as you say in the example you gave earlier, it's hard to make leaders see that their problems are maybe caused by themselves. And that's why I'm so focused on the interesting fact that, and the interesting problem that the people who are most happy about WorkJoy are the ordinary employees. Of course, that was my focus, but it's not the one buying the software. So that's my, like, how do I? Okay, it's a luxury problem to have, I think, like that. Okay, it works, and we can create something that's better than most managers can create because of the background. And like, okay, if you implement a system, you don't spend 2 years grinding down the details, like on getting that absolutely pitch perfect. And you might use your own ideas without maybe validating that not only working with your current team, but also the team you're going to have in a year or two. Like, so you're absolutely right that that's all the interesting challenges we have right now. And that's why I'm so focused on, we're never going to beat an Asana or a or a Slack one-on-one. You have companies such as Threads.com that go directly up against Slack with some different models, or Twist.com, and I really applaud those companies, also because I think they are on the right path compared to some of the problems that Slack have. And we are doing sort of the same patterns, but that's a completely different thing. But one-on-one, I'm not that arrogant that I think I can build something that's so brilliant that is gonna be like worth just changing a one-on-one system. Like the point is that you have this gravity of all these systems in one place. So like, yeah, we get the project management and it works really, really well. And you have goal settings in there, which you maybe didn't have before, or we have good meeting notes and it works like, and it's easy for employees to use, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's fine. But then because we have that in that system, and we also have, again, our courses. So when we, for example, in Clerk, we do a lot of videos at the moment on simply documenting every single feature we have. So an easy way to train both new and existing people whenever a new video comes out is just throwing it into the LMS. Then you know that everybody, and you just throw in 3 multiple choice questions, like just to make sure that people have seen the content and kind of know. So when customers have seen that video and call into support, like support is not called with their pants down. Just that little thing, and it's just right there. It's a little blip in the corner. Like it's not another place you have to go. Like that's the value in WorkJoy. And I can see that's why I'm so focused on. There needs to be enough gravity, as I call it. Like there's enough things drawing the employees into that system. That's why we need the HRIS. I'm not super enthusiastic about HRIS systems, but it would be stupid not to have it. And I'm actually pretty interested about recruiting, like HCSs and recruiting platforms, because I think there's a lot of things that could be done smarter there. So that's that's something I'm really interested in. But the whole thing here in WorkJoy is to create this gravity there. So yeah, and one-on-one, so that's how I can see we come around the managers that, okay, you might not be able to build like that process you have built that people don't follow anyway because they don't fill out all of your fields. Like, no, you won't get that with WorkJoy because it's not documented to be a good way of leading. But what you get instead is that your team is much more up to date because the LMS is literally 2 centimeters away on their screen from the product management system. Like so you get a team that's much easier to train and get up and running. Yeah. So that's I think that's that's the interesting phase we go into. I'm really excited about closing down like step 1, where we can go to this more public launch where people just can sign up, and I can go full on sales and marketing, which even though I'm a technical founder, I really love and really look forward to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess to some degree that what you mentioned there about the employees' feedback and the way that they interact with the platform would be a really interesting set of data to provide to people as you're reaching out to them, right? It's like, well, unsure about whether or not to use our platform. Well, this is what the employees have to say, because ultimately that's what matters, right? Like you just pointed out. And if it's something like that compared to, traditional LMS or, project management tools and so on, and you can put that side by side, then maybe that can help people sort of get divorced from what they're, what they've put in place already. If it's clear, it's just like, well, employees prefer this.
That's why I love that quote. Like I'm really falling in love with it. And I just got it randomly on a DM in WorkJoy, because of course I use WorkJoy to onboard WorkJoy. That quote about, I wish I just had. Sorry about cursing. I wish I had WorkJoy when I started here because of those 22 tabs. They had to close for 2 months. Like that quote just frames so much of the narrative around, and I can see it resonate with a lot of leaders because deep down they know, like a lot of their problems come from that problem that people don't, as you say, like with your restaurant example, like you don't go back and put things where they should be and follow the processes, and
so you have to find a compromise. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said about your approach with sales as well, and the fact that you're excited about that, because of that, I don't hear that enough from technical co-founders. But yeah, what you were saying about the way you approach it is really interesting, because I think, you know, a lot of people I speak to are stuck between with how to do personalized outreach, right? Because there's a lot of information out there which seems to make it out to be something completely that it isn't. And what you've described to me is true personalized outreach, like even using something like Loom and video. I talk about that a lot with people, and you know, just showing a quick 30-second video, like 1 minute video, just to show, like you said, that you've just got you know, you've made the minimal amount of effort just to look at their profile or look at their website or something like that. And I really like the fact that you've identified very clearly that it's just about essentially starting a relationship. Right? It's not really, you know, you're not really selling. It's not, hey, here's my product, this is everything that it does, and overwhelming people. It's just, I've got this hypothesis. I have a feeling that you, based on your profile, who you are, whatever, would be a great person to speak to about this. Fancy a chat.
It's about helping others.
Exactly.
Like, that's how I see it.
Give, right? Before you take. Yeah.
I interrupt you. No, I'm also like, I build companies too. Like, help others out. That's what I think is fun. Like, that's what gives me excitement. So I just channel that into sales. And how can and so interrupting others, taking other people's time and attention, like sneaking into the inbox, I have no problems with it when it's helpful and it's an ask, and it's because you have actually sit down, and it works brilliantly. And I know that the same way around. Like, every time you can just look at a piece of text without reading a single word and know if this is a sales boilerplate. Like, your brain just knows instantly. You don't even have to read it. Or if it's a person that's actually writing to you. And I love the people that reach out to me and actually try to help. I have this product. Sometimes we end up buying them, sometimes we don't. Like, but I always like, of course I'm gonna, like, you're hitting a point. We have this problem. Let's see if your product is the one that's helping us.
Yeah. And but like you said, attention is the biggest, is the main currency of the day, right? So yeah, if you've got 1,000, I mean, if you're anything like me, probably worse for you. I get a ridiculous amount of DMs constantly asking me for this and ever, or emails or whatever else. You've got to stand out, like, you know, and sometimes actually stripping things down and just keeping it simple is the best way to do that. Ensure personality comes across a little bit, for fuck's sake, you know, like connect with someone on a bit of a human level, like, because like you said, it's just copy paste. Like, that doesn't help anyone.
There's nothing more efficient than not using a template. Like, you can use a structure, like, but handwriting everything. I've seen so many people that then they just try to bulk email 1,000 people and get 0 responses back, and there's just 1,000 leads that have gotten a bad impression from you, and like just showing that little bit of effort, and it's not a lot, but it's just much more efficient.
Yeah, exactly. You said there exactly what I always say, which is, yes, okay, you can be more efficient because you can email 1,000 people in one go, but like you just pointed out, you're also burning 999 leads just to get one, and that reputational damage you can't recover from easily, like, because you'll just be associated with being a spammer,
and vice versa. Like, going into and I've had people, when I reached out, they was just like, you're just going to sell me this thing. So, no, I'm actually not. I'm super genuine about that. Right now, I'm just asking for feedback. And I remember one founder I wrote to was just like, if I wanted to sell, I'd gone to this person in your organization, because that would have been a better path for selling. Like, I'm asking you because you are the founder to give me feedback. I would have gone in through the head of people and culture. Like, I think that would have been better way to go into sales and more relevant to start building there and then go up to the CEO, even though people say stuff from the back. But I want you, because I know that a part of the pain WorkJoy solves is also just this founder burnout or leader burnout, where you simply don't have the operating principles in place to keep up with what your company or department has gone through. So.
Yeah, it's a smart way of approaching it. I think there's some valuable advice and tips in there for people. So end of October, you said, is when you're hoping to sort of more have an open public, you know, self sign up.
Now I know exactly the feature set we want to launch publicly with, and I know like sort of the amount of polish we want to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's about a month's work, but you never know with polish work. And I have the flexibility.
Any dev work, you never know.
You never know with any dev work, but especially the polish can be. I think it's sometimes the hardest thing is like, I know I need to make this headline look better. But if you don't know, one thing is I know a bit of system that logically can do these steps. That's easier to do than what is better, and then you go back and forth, and suddenly you find, I think that's it. Like, so I think, I hope within this month that we launch publicly, and I also want to do it proper with, But I'm really looking. I'm tired of building, but I want to get back into get more people using the product. More sales, more marketing, talking about the problems, and it's something I'm super passionate about. So I'm really right now I'm just really looking forward to getting this last batch of things done.
Should you charge, do you think, early users, and do you charge your early users?
So the way I've built, I hate time-based trials because that might not work with how you actually evaluate a piece of software and say, I want to evaluate all the pieces of software before this date. So the way I've implemented in WorkJoy is that you basically get a limit on how much stuff you can put in there. You get 1,000 items. You can put 1,000 items, and an item is just a task or a comment or a course, or I don't care. Like, it's not because we fine grade. We count to 1,000, and then you have to sign up. Because after 1,000 items, you should have been able to evaluate it. And if you add 50 people to evaluate it, like, it's fine. Like, if you so I think I found that way of working. Works really well. I don't think I'm gonna do. Maybe I want a free tier. I don't think I want a free tier for WorkJoy because, like, either you have the problem or not, and are we gonna convert enough of the smaller customers up when the problems are really solved? Blah 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 blah. And if you're small and solving this problem, is it still worth it? But all of these things are flexible. Like, I think for me, I've been really over fixing it. Like, if you're just grandfathering old customers in terms of pricing and terms, you can just change things. You can just change things. Like, and I think setting that up from the beginning in a way where you set your credit card processing and subscription handling and blah, blah. If you set it up in a way where you can just change your mind and you can live with, like, people can just run on these old subscription, it's fine. Like, then you can just go in and experiment a lot with that. So I'm really like, I actually just changed the pricing model now that we're nearing launch. Before it was more on a per module basis, but I decided I want them so tightly coupled that even though you can toggle them on and off, you're just going to pay one price as an early customer. Like, I think it's, and I actually love our pricing site right now. I think it's one of the best pricing sites I've ever done, because you just have two columns of like, on one side, you have our price, which is like $19 monthly. You get 2 months for free if you get a year, like, super simple. And then you get all the features, and that's like per seat more expensive than the other software, like, because that's mostly like $8 or $15. It's still cheaper than Asana with goals, because that's $30 or something like that. It's crazy.
Right.
But
I'm looking at it now. It's really smartly laid out.
You have this one stack of all the software tools, and I think it's actually the page on our website that right now best describes the value of the product. So I actually really enjoy building that price page, because you really see that not only do you get like positioning on price, but you also get a positioning on value and what we're doing, and you don't have to have this complicated stack on one side and ours on another side.
Yeah.
But for the people that are using
in some ways,
now,
this pricing page could be your home page.
I think it's better than the front page. Like, for right now, it's better. But pricing page here usually better. Like, they're usually
well, they're most informative, aren't they?
Yeah. So you should buy pricing pages are not for the price. It's for positioning your value. Like, it's for all those other things. So, and it's short. I normally love to do really, really long pricing pages as well. So, so it's coming there's a lot of more things coming. No, but I think we just changed it because it was too complicated. One of my values in WorkJoy is that it's simple. Then the price also needs to be simple. Like the software, you had to implement all of these things in terms of like the user experience. It was actually getting away of using, like, our whole menu structure was redefined because we simplified our pricing structure. Then we could make the menu much simpler in place. Like all these kind of things. But to get back to like, should early customers, if the product is not ready to deliver the value, which for some parts of WorkJoy it's been in this early phase, but for some parts like it's not, I haven't charged anything. I love to charge. I don't believe people until they pay me. Because it's so easy to say that they have to use it and then they have to pay for it. Like that's when you know you have created something. That's still my big like concern about WorkJoy. Not concern, but you know, like, I still don't trust anybody that uses it at the moment until they have to pay for it. But it's also super easy because it's like, hey, would you pay this for it? No. Okay, why? Like it's the easiest way to get into the features and things that actually matter. So I always love putting pricing up front. I always love using that as a barrier. Like, it's not like you have to pay to get to use it, but get to use it and tell me what I need to do to get you to pay this price for it. Like, I think
or if you were to pay for this right now, how much would you pay? Right?
Yeah.
That's always an interesting question too.
A friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, subscribe for more and join the conversation in the comments. It really helps us out. Thank you.
I think that's harder. Also because then you can kind of get sucked into, I just love to sit down and say what price makes sense for me with the sales I want to do, like with
your own mathematics, essentially.
With your own like, what price makes sense for me and for the value I think I can bring. And then it's about getting people to go up to that level. So what will make it? So for WorkJoy, we need to be more expensive than one of the tools because we build more, we maintain more. Like, but we are not more expensive than 2 of the 8 tools. So so you can see, as long as you use 3 tools, you will still save money on switching to WorkJoy, even though you get more value. Like if you're using 8 tools, so you have that, and I think that's really about making sure you can run a business you want, and then get the value of your product up to that level. I want to do we need to sell to bigger customers. We need bigger deal sizes. We want to do sales outreach. Okay, we need a price that reflects that.
Would I be able to use this tool with my founder clients, do you reckon? Would it work as a consultant?
Yeah. How would you think about it? Depends on in your own company or in across different founders.
Across different founders. Would it work in sort of managing them as as clients and managing the different projects that we have going on, or is it not really would it not really work in that capacity?
Depends on the details. So the way I've built it is that you can have be on multiple companies, because I'm naturally on multiple companies, but you switch, like you fully switch from one company to another to keep that focus. So that's one way of setting it up. Also because I know some of the people I've in as early feedback is also investors. So for a lot of them, it also makes sense to actually follow not everything in the company, but like the strategic level things and collaborate with that. But no, it's not built for maybe, but maybe not. So it's built for the use case of having a company and that's what I mean by being opinionated. It depends on how it works, but there might be software that's better for like client work. Like for project management things, because that's not the focus. The focus is if you have a group of people working together, that all of that alignment works really, really well. Really smooth. So that's why I keep coming back to that. It's opinionated, because I believe that the strength of WorkJoy is that somebody dares to be opinionated about good leadership. Like that's the value in the software. Is an easier employee experience across all of these things. Like, because if you just go back to the project management thing, I mean, you try to build good project management tools, but Asana's not doubling down on employee experience. Like, and Monday is not, and Notion is not, and ClickUp is not, and whatever you have out there for all these tools that people use. Like, so that's what and that's also the people I want to attract I've been really thinking about like how broad should you go, how opinionated should you be, but also like, and that's where you say like, I want to build this thing because I believe the world would be a better place if it existed. Because the companies that have this internal friction, which is almost all companies, really need this and need this set of tools, and they don't utilize the possibilities enough. And I could see I didn't when I was CEO. So that's.
I remember when we first started talking, you were talking a lot about the educational side of WorkJoy, and there were some concerns. Would it be too much, right? Because the platform is opinionated, would it be too much to try and find those individuals, or too much for them to wrap their head around? What's your stance on that now? Because it sounds to me a little bit like maybe you've come to the conclusion that, well, it's okay because those people already exist, and now it's just a case of finding them and saying, right, there's an alignment, as opposed to trying to get people to come round to that way of being leaders. Would that be a fair assessment of how you've come around to it?
Yeah, there's definitely a market that want, like, if you go in on WorkJoy, it's super ugly right now, but I've written this section about calm leadership, and it's not. It's a draft. It's going to be a book at some point, I think. I actually think it's going to be it's going to be a small handbook for leaders that want to lead more calmly. Like that's where it's heading. Like that's also going to take some time. So I want to find people that believe in that. If you don't believe in that, like if you believe in fundamentally different things, you're never going to enjoy what I built. But I believe that people that believe in that are fundamentally underserved, and have no tools and nothing that helps them besides themselves and what they can create in a small sphere around them as leaders. So there are 2 points to what you said. I think it's both. I want to find the group of people that believe in this, and I can see more and more people believe in this. Like it's some of the tailwind you can get as an entrepreneur. Like it's trend going in that direction. That as the working generations get smaller and smaller, like employees get more and more picky. Like of course you want that. So there's some tailwinds there. So both from a personal side and from a business side, I believe that's the right place to be. And then also I can just see from, as you say, in the feature side, I'm less concerned now that people have used the software, because I've also seen a lot of people, like I don't have to educate people that much, because it comes more and more like naturally to them. And again, because no matter what systems you build in all of these different project management tools, like they are literally flavors of the same dish. Like, so even though you think this is the way it's going to work, now it's going to be easy to align across my team, and then you have added a field to something, or so again, it's flavors of the same thing. So it's all I talked with one other person about, where it's like I was concerned about how can you build, but that's the classic platform versus specialist. There's so much more value in, like, the problem with all the specialist things. Yeah, there might be one thing that one piece of software is doing better for one person. The problem is, because you have a big group of people, those edge cases even out. Like if you hire 100 people, you're going to have a lot of different people. That means the only thing that value to that group are the average. Like the average features. It's not going to be the special detail feature. It might be super nice for 5 people, but then it doesn't matter to 95. And so for the group of people, having all the core functionality in one place is a much better value add than one specific thing here, and like 5 people having one feature here and 2 people having one feature in another system, and then you have 100 people that have to context switch. So since we talked last time, more people have had WorkJoy between their hands. I've seen more people. I've gotten more feedback from the real people that's going to use it every day. So that makes me more calm about this. That yes, one part of it is finding the leaders that believe in the same thing I do, because nobody is there to really serve them until now. And I believe that group, from a business perspective, is going to be bigger and bigger with the trends that are like, it's not like we just in the world we are in right now, where everybody tries to raise interest rates and are frustrated that unemployment doesn't go down. And I'm like, of course it doesn't. Like, have you seen the demographics? You can't do that anymore. Like, you will never have, and I'm not going to say never, but there's a big change. You're not going to have youth unemployment or anything again because just because of the demographics. So that just means that there is this pressure on making work more and more attractive. And if you go, even if you are not remote, you're competing for talent with remote companies and people. So all these things are going to matter. All the things that I believe in and I've written about in calm leadership, like, they're going to matter more and more and more in the future. It's just a stance I believe in. So that's from this perspective. And then just seeing that none of all these different pieces of software is that unique.
And you're right. There's a lot of factors at play, and I think one of them is this remote or hybrid or distributed workforce culture that's pushing things forward, which I think is affecting the way that that leadership has to function. And so this framework, if you will, that you've created, I think it's always been known to be instinctive. Like, there are parts of it I think that are instinctive, but there are some maybe that aren't so instinctive for certain leaders. But all of it is becoming, I think, a lot more applicable across the board because, like you say, the shifting of the way that the companies are structured. And so, yeah, it has to be, because, like you said, there's I think the biggest thing is this context switching side of things. Because so many people are being asked to do so much more across, different areas of specialty, and their accountability for it is shifting as well. It's shifting from, a manager walking around a table full of people to people at home having to motivate themselves to get work done. And so there's an element of leadership which I think it has to change in order to inspire people a lot more than micromanage people, which is not a bad shift, I don't think. But there seems to be a psychological change in the way that we work now.
But I also think that people are also gotten eyes up to how productive you can actually be. And I've had lots of discussion with managers about this, because I had a conversation with a manager the other day that was really, really in office. You do more work in office. And I was like, if I look at a week I have when I'm at an office and a week I have at home, if I have to labor every hour, many of my hours at home are gonna be labeled on something that's not work. Then I take a walk to clear my brain, or I play some PlayStation after lunch for half an hour or something like that. That's clearly not work. Like, it's really, really clearly not work. But what do you do at the office? You sit in meetings where you don't contribute, and you have another meeting after that. Then you have a lot of Slack channels that are filled with stuff you need to read up on. So maybe there's something important in there. And then you have the coffee breaks, and where you just talk to your colleagues and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of things in an office that looks like work, which really isn't contributing to anything.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think the different shift is going to be, and I truly believe this is the leader. If you don't know what people need to output to perform, and if they are outputting, if you can only count butts and seats for X hours a day, like, you cannot lead. You cannot know what they like. If you don't know if a person has been productive or not, then you can't lead them. Like, how could you?
And you absolutely can't scale an organization without understanding that either.
Or at least you die, because then you have another organization that knows which of their people, like, they might like if you count butts and seats and somebody else knows who's really making impact and who's not, they outcompete you. Boom. Or even if it's not company to company, leader to leader, they get a promotion. You don't, because they could create better results. And that's one of the things WorkJoy really facilitates, is making it easier to see who's getting actual work done. Like, because it becomes more transparent to leaders what is actually going on and the task you delegate. And there's a lot of, like, because it's easier, and just see that, because it's easier to just write down the tasks and the work. Like, we have a rule in WorkJoy. If it's not written down, it's not work. Like a simple rule, you cannot delegate verbally.
Right.
Because if any confusion comes up, you need to be able to go in and look at what your work is. What are your commitments? What are your promises? Like, that cannot be vague. That's one of the things that we're more.
Is it because you there's a sense of accountability that you like in that as well, or is it really just more for those other things that you mentioned?
it's because it always goes wrong. Because
Right.
then I remembered something, and then you remembered something else, or I forgot, or you forgot, and I forgot I made the promise. Like that's like most of the time WorkJoy saves my butt is because I've promised something to another person. They wrote it down, or I wrote it down, and then I come back later and say, oh, I remember I had written, like, promised to get this thing done, or
Yeah,
write,
yeah.
like, help with this thing, or write this thing, or blah blah blah, whatever it is. Like, so that's why we have the rule. If it's not written down, it's not work, and that's just because that means we're forced to write down how we work, not our processes and like click this button, like, but like how do we work? How do we approach sales? How to deal with customer like success? How do we build products like we are a small team. I've already written out the handbook on the formula of how we are, like, because I know how to scale at least 250. Like that handbook of how we're going to organize in teams and how we're thinking is already written and there. Like, so and that just means that people that come in, they can just freaking sit down and read it, and then they know where we are. Then if I have to clarify things, I can go back and do my writing better. I actually think it's one of the topics I cover in clear leadership, calm leadership, is really how important writing is. I discovered it way too late. Many of my heroes in terms of other founders talked about how important writing was, and I just thought I'm not a writing person. But what I realized was when I learned it is I was just not a clear thinker, because the little trick that writing does, and it's a super simple thing. When I talk to you, like, I don't have a clear perception of what I'm saying, because I hear it when the words come out of my mouth, but at the same time I have the thoughts in my head. So if I hear this into you back afterwards, I can clearly hear that it's not as coherent as the thoughts in my head. Like, because you're reducing something really complex in your brain, like emotions and feelings and ideas, down into words, and you do that real time. But in writing, like, so and you know that from sales pitches as well. You can do 10 sales pitches. It's not the last one that's the best. It might be the third one that was the best. Like, it goes up and down. But in writing, it always gets better. So if I write something down, like how we're going to do something, or how we are going to approach something, that writing will always be the best version, because I only edit it when I upgrade it. Like, so there's a lot of things about writing and delegation, and that's also again key to unlocking remote work and all that.
Documenting things, iterating it. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm on record as saying that I think communication in general is like the most important skill set, but written and verbal, and I think written is massively underrated as a skill set. And some of the things that I suggest some founders to do early on, especially if they want to get more commercially minded, so people who haven't got the commercial experience in sales or marketing, is to do some writing exercises and some public speaking exercises. I think they're both very useful.
Every founder should blog about what their company does. Like it's the biggest mistake I did in the beginning with Clerk. Like, both it gives you great content for SEO later on, but it also gives you a lot of things for other people in your company to learn from and share with customers and stuff. Like, one of the big Clerk had, if I just started blogging from the beginning, like 2x would be my lower bar for how much bigger the company would be, just for me writing my thoughts down from the beginning.
I give solo founders a piece of advice. I'd be curious to know what you think on this, but I quite often tell solo founders to create basically a bit of a journal or a diary. And it doesn't have to be like full paragraphs, or big chapters or anything, but just anything that's happened throughout the day, any thoughts that they're having, maybe a new process they've created, or something they worked on their product, whatever it is, jot it down. And I say, do this in one document, because that can act as the foundation for all the things you've just said. It could be a great blog idea, and it's like, oh, take that, turn it into a blog. It could be the V1 of their sales playbook. It could be, you know what I mean, like their company handbook at the beginning of that. Like, all of it's in there if you just get your thoughts down on paper.
That's a great advice. I also say, every time you build a feature, especially for technical founders, write a handful of blog posts about like why you built that feature,
right?
Like the problems it solves. Like it comes natural. If you look at WorkJoy's blog right now, it's only we have been doubled down on product, but you can actually see some traces of some articles I've just published, and they have we haven't announced the product, but when I got good insights on the product, I just wrote like, and I can, some of it is finished and put on the blog just to be there. Like, and a lot more are just still half finished in my little notebook app. Like,
it's a great way to do it, and then you can go back to that when you need to, go into full commercial mode, and you can go through all that and think and remind yourself all the conversations you had, and you're like, what are the key value propositions we need to put on the website? Okay, well, let's look at all the things I've wrote over the last 6 to 8 months or whatever. That's the key one. That was it. This one keeps coming up. It's all super useful, and I think way more useful than, say, like having a transcript of an entire conversation with a user. It's like, you're not going to go back and read a full transcript, but if you just highlight the key things that stood out or why you built that feature, like you said, it's super useful, really, really useful.
And I think I actually had a discussion the other day about like being written versus verbal, where somebody could. So I think the person I talked to saw me really taking a stance as being everything should be written. I was like, no, like I'm just arguing that instead of we might today in a normal work environment we might be like, and I still consider a lot of the chat things like verbal, not written. Like so of course we communicate a lot on chat when we do it. Like so we write a lot of things, but like real written work, like things you have written down, taking a step back from, going back to, like reading that. Leaders should be doing that all the time. That's the only way to clearly communicate to your team, like what works. Like, and if you find it difficult, that's because your brain knows that the words on that page doesn't reflect the thoughts you have in your head, and that's a sign to you that it's not yet ready for your team. Go back and iterate. But my point was, I was talking to this leader who's like he thought, or maybe I was like, we couldn't talk to each other because everything has to be written. I was like, no, I'm just arguing that instead of going from being 1 or 2% written and 98% verbal, that we maybe go to 20% written, 80% verbal. Because of course people need to talk, of course we need, but the written is really good at coming in as this foundation. So like again, if you look at how you use an LMS, well, like many people are hesitant because in-person training is better. Well, no, in-person training is really, really good at building upon the foundation. So you build the foundation with this written work, so you're sure everybody learns the same thing. And we have done the mistake in work in Clerk, putting our evangelists into training people, and the results were just worse than if they had done like written stuff. And then we used evangelists to like Q&A on top of that, or go deep dive on top of that.
Yeah.
So you need a lot of verbal. Like people are social animals, but we just need to go from that 1-2% of well-written things we use to maybe 20%.
Yeah. Well, look, I've only just realized the time. That's flown by. Look, normally at the end, what I like to do is ask my guests for sort of like some tips that they would give to entrepreneurs and founders listening. But the thing is, with speaking to you and WorkJoy as a whole, that the whole conversation has really kind of been that to a degree, right? I feel like. So I want to ask just a question that was been rattling around in my head for a little while, and then I'll let you go because I know you've got a lot to do, which is this idea of software becoming more and more homogenized, like we talked about right at the beginning. This idea that like you pointed out, something that's standalone software now will become a feature in software at some point later on. What do you see the eventual endpoint of that being? Because now with the sort of rise of AI and things like that, I don't think it's going to be long before we see AI built into operating systems, and even things like Windows or iOS and things like all of these operating systems now are just bringing in more and more tools, just part of the thing. So where do you see it all going? Like, is everything going to be completely homogenized and going to lose personality and individuality, or are you quite hopeful?
Hopeful is I fundamentally believe at some point we will build a general AI that will kill us all. So I'm not hopeful in that way.
Oh, really? You actually believe that?
I don't believe it would do it on purpose. I believe that just as we can justify, we need the resources more than a worm. Like if you just look at the intelligence gap between us and chimpanzees and how small that is, if you have the same degree along that vector for an AI, which would be a small step for an AI that's generally intelligent. Like, I think it's just going to make the same assumptions we do. Like, I can use the resources better, so I'm going to take the sunlight or water or like.
Right. But the thing is, though, human beings, though, like just to throw in there, because I'm curious about this one, but just human beings, though, while we understand or we consider a worm or an ant to be insignificant because of the intelligence gap, we would, I don't think, ever be able to justify to ourselves the annihilation of all worms, right, or all ants, because we understand their importance in context. And we
annihilate species every day.
Yeah, so but not from an intentional perspective of like we want to collaboratively kill all of this species, right? It's accidental. So is that what you mean? Maybe
I don't believe in Terminator. I maybe more believe in that some humans might live in a zoo. Like
right, okay.
So I don't believe it's gonna be. I still think it's just gonna be like, okay, do I want this animal to live a good life, or do I want my kid to live a good life? Like that choice is where it's going to be the selfish choice that is eventually gonna, if we are not the top dog, then yeah.
So we might be pets.
So yeah, we're gonna be provided. But I hope I'm wrong. Like I hope I'm wrong. And I think we are long away from a general intelligence. It's much more complicated, we think, but we're really close. No, but let's get back to this. Let's get back to the LLMs that come out. And
otherwise we'd need the whole other session for that. I wish I'd asked you this question sooner now, because I really want to delve into that, but we'll talk about it another time.
I know. But I will quickly take this one, because there are both a lot of tools coming. That means you can be much more productive now than you were earlier in just building software. Like that's always been a trend. So you can build more things together. I think that trend is just coming. But I think it's also like the differentiation when everybody can build something is, what stance do you take? What are you opinionated about? And then you're going to find your tribe that way. Like there's like, I love some software like, what is it, like plausible analytics or Phantom or Fathom analytics or something like that. But like you have software that is paid, that's competing with Google Analytics, and it has fewer features, or one of the features is that it's simpler. Right. And like so I think like it's just not an amount of features it's stage take, it's how you build it and put it together, and that's like it's the opinion you choose to put into your software that's gonna be what people choose. And you can see the bar for software, just the 10 years, 15 years I've been building software, it's just higher and higher and higher. So you have to build something of really great quality, but so the differentiators, and people build more and more quality, so the differentiators is just staying. What do you value? And then you put that into your software, and then people that value the same thing will get something that fits them. But for the AI thing, I think it's going to be super interesting, because I think it's going to change how we use user interfaces. That why would I navigate into, sometimes it's easier to navigate a menu than writing, because something I've learned using LLMs is also that, one problem is the LLM not being smart enough. Another problem is me being able to express myself clearly enough through words. Like, even though you can use LLMs to generate code, sometimes I cannot use the English language precise enough to generate the code I want. Like, it's much easier for me to use Python or JavaScript as a way of communicating with a machine. Like, so you actually also notice that we humans, again, we're not that good at being, like, we have clear pictures in our head, reducing it down to language, really hard. But I think it's gonna transform user interfaces in a way where it's gonna be much more component based. So instead of you navigate to a dashboard and pull out a graph, you can just put up the command prompt. You can choose to do that, but you can also just put up the command prompt and ask for that specific graph, and then it would get it. Like, so you need to build user interfaces that are components like that, that it can understand and figure out and work with when you just want quick answers. So some things are going to be that. But no, I think the world is actually going to be much more interesting, because software is going to be much more about, it's going to be much more for you. That's going to be much more software built by people that think like you and work for you. You don't have, maybe also because it's going to be more crowded. So you might not have like 4 pieces of software to choose from, which are all more similar. You might have 20, and then you can pick the one that's just like what your value in this. Like you have many different CRM systems. Like some are built for big organizations that can impose a lot of rules for managers. Some are built to be super lenient for the average salesperson. Like, what choice do you take? Like some are built to work really great together with marketing. Some are not. Like so I think it's those choices, and that's the same with work.
So it's going to kind of mold a bit more. Software, you believe, is going to mold a bit more around the individual as opposed to being sort of as blanket for everyone. There's going to be the choice is going to open that up. You think? Yeah.
More quality. So it doesn't matter if you choose like one piece of communication software. You already have that. Like some people use Slack, some people use Teams, some people use Threads, some people use like so. So I think it's just a good thing for the world. Software gets easier to build because you can get something that's closer and closer to what you value. But I think it's gonna be not on the hardcore features, but more on the how have you chosen to structure this? Because that's the choice you're gonna get. Like, okay, I like this more because it's more focused on what I want in the world or how I like to do things.
I agree, and I also think to go a step further, I think there's probably going to be a lot of development in like AI UI, right? In this idea that one piece of software, depending on who uses it, will look completely different, just based on behavior. That it will change and it will morph based on, in the same way like you said that WorkJoy doesn't display certain menu items until certain things are being done, like a similar kind of thing like that, but to the extreme, where literally, it will be completely different from one person to the next, just based on the way that they interact with the software. It will give them back different things, and I think that would be a really interesting time to see that kind of UI and software develop, and it will probably be powered, I would imagine, by AI.
Yeah, at least LLMs. Like I'm really looking forward to LLMs being like, we're still super early days, so I'm just watching and playing. I don't believe in being a first mover. The second mover has a way bigger advantage because they can look at the mistakes the first mover made, and but there's tons of potential just in WorkJoy for using all of this for advising and helping leaders based on the data on the team. But that again requires, for example, self-hosted LLMs, because you might not want to share sensitive data, like, so that means we need to be able to host the LLMs ourselves, which are also coming.
You need to be able to siphon it appropriately, like you said, because you might not want the intern to have the same level of access to the company information as, say, the executive team, right? So you need to find ways
that's one thing, but you also want an element that's hosted on the same server as the database, so you don't send all your company secrets or all the private things that employees have said, or whatever you want to work on, that's text processed. But I think there's a lot of possibilities for doing great things. So I'm just like, from that perspective, I'm really looking into the whole pocket coach AI thing for leaders, like, but just on a who knows basis. Like, it's gonna be something at some point, but
keep an eye on it and see what happens. All right, man. Well, look, it's really great to see you again. I'll let you go because we're a bit over, and I'm sure you've got I know you've got a lot to do, so I'll let you crack on. But look, I'm going to message you after this because we should arrange another chat where I can show you what I've been building, what my team's been building. I can't take responsibility because I'd love your feedback on it, because I know we spoke about it briefly before, but it's been a while, so it'd be good to hear what your thoughts are. And man, keep up the great work.
Yeah, you too. Really, really nice to see you again. And
likewise. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.
Great.
Thank you for watching and/or listening. Please like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments below.